Welcome to the NICU Today Podcast, a podcast to give families a new point of support as they navigate the NICU journey. Thank you for listening. Please don't forget to subscribe wherever you enjoy your podcast and share this episode with anyone who might find it helpful. Welcome to the NICU Today Podcast. Our guest today shows that no matter how much of an expert you are in the field, you are never fully prepared when facing the trauma of NICU life yourself. After a difficult first pregnancy and severe postpartum, Jessica strived to shift her career as a therapist towards becoming an expert in perinatal mental health. In the year 2020, she realized her dreams and was hired to oversee Maternity Care Coalition's family therapy program, allowing her to advocate and promote widespread knowledge of pre- and postpartum mood disorders. During this part of her career, Jessica and her husband, Sean, began working towards expanding their family, a process which unfortunately would result in the couple suffering 5 losses over 2 years and undergoing months of testing and fertility treatment with no answers. To cope, Jessica began to expand her practice knowledge into working directly with others who had experienced pregnancy loss and fertility challenges, training through both the Postpartum Society International and the American Society of Reproductive Medicine. Jessica Dashevsky has more of her incredible story to share with us today, so we are going to jump right into the conversation. Welcome, Jessica.
Hi, everyone.
We're so happy to have you.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here and talk about this journey with you.
Yes. Well, I know I shared a little bit in the introduction, but I would love for you to share in your own words a little more about your family's journey to starting a family.
Yeah, it's been a crazy 6 years. Oh my goodness, I think. Yeah. I think I talked about this a little bit, and you mentioned it a little bit in the intro. So I have an older daughter. Her name is Evie. She is 5.5. And, my initial pregnancy with her back in 2019 actually was extremely difficult. I had every issue under the sun. I had a really traumatic birth and sort of said, you know what, she's amazing. I'm done. We're good. I just kind of want to focus on my career. I want to focus on supporting other moms and not go through this again myself. But in 2020, oddly enough, around the same time that COVID hit, I got really sick, and I almost lost my life to bacterial meningitis. And I think that was a really big eye-opener for my husband and I, that, you know what, life is really short. We're not done. We want to keep adding to our family, and, cherish these moments together. So it was a really kind of a big event in our lives together. And so I think that was March 2020. And then around August of that year, we started trying. Because around March 2020 was also when I started, looking for something in the field that I could put my passions into, as I got like this new spark of life. And yeah, around August of that year, I interviewed and got the position at Maternity Care Coalition, and we started trying for baby number 2. So Go ahead.
Oh, no, I just wanted to say, so you started trying for baby number 2. And I know we've talked a little bit before, but you had challenges not only getting pregnant, right? Staying pregnant.
Yeah.
And that's where your NICU experience came into play.
Yes. That was, so, it was started in August 2020, and by, I think, May of 2022, we'd had 5 losses at that point. We had gone through 10 rounds of fertility treatment, 2 fertility clinics, sort of we're trying everything under the sun, and finally got pregnant. Finally had a viable pregnancy, I should say. And, again, really, really rough pregnancy, but sort of what kept me going through it was we had tried so hard. This was our rainbow baby times 5. We were going to make it. Everything was going to be okay. And unfortunately, that was not the case.
Mm-hmm.
So, I had suffered preeclampsia in my first pregnancy, but it was not as severe as my pregnancy with Vera. And I think that having gone through all of the losses and also just through the pregnancy with Evie, our oldest, I was very hypervigilant the entire experience. And I remember I had specifically chosen a hospital that was 45 minutes away because they were really supportive of either gentle C-sections or VBACs. And I really kind of wanted a much better birthing experience this time than I had the first time. But, the 45-minute trek.
Mm-hmm. And how long did you carry Vera?
So I carried Vera for 34 weeks.
Okay. And delivered her. And did you have challenges with your health? You had preeclampsia the second time around as well?
Yes.
And what did that look like for you?
It looked like all of a sudden she wasn't moving as much as she was supposed to be moving. And I'm sitting at the NST, the non-stress test, that morning, and I just kind of knew something was wrong. I wasn't feeling well, but you know what? Who is feeling great in their third trimester when they have, everything under the sun going on? And the nurses came in and they said, "Hey, she's not doing good. You need to go to triage." And then, again, being told yeah, she's not great. Maybe we'll keep you here for a week. And then my blood pressure skyrocketed to, I think, 200 over 150. And they said, "Never mind. She's being born today. We have to get her out." And I'll always remember the sound of her heart decelerating on the machines in labor and delivery. And just kind of having to come to terms with, okay, well, what do we do now?
Right.
How do I get my husband here? What do we do with my daughter at home?
And did you have this type of emergency delivery with Evie as well?
With Evie, I was having some hypertension, but we did a planned C-section early on.
Okay.
It was 37 weeks. And they basically got her out before it got too bad.
Mm-hmm.
This time around, it got bad very quickly in the end.
And so going into the NICU, delivering at 34 weeks, I mean, just hearing you share your story, it never leaves us, right? All of those moments when you talk about remembering the heart deceleration and all of those things. I mean, those moments just stick with all of us forever, right? That trauma, that experience. When you went into the NICU, how'd you get through each day? What did your NICU experience look like?
That's a great question. I think to this day, I don't completely know exactly how I got through. I jokingly say that my therapist brain kicked in and helped me survive. It really kind of helped me do a little bit of compartmentalizing because I was alone. I very much was isolated while I was in the hospital. My husband had to stay back here with our oldest, and the hospital only allowed 2 visitors. At the time I had a doula. So honestly, and Martha, I think when we first talked, I told you this, one of the things that got me through was, the little lunches that Today is a Good Day would bring, because the hospital food was terrible. And that I could have a little break because I would run away and escape to the NICU and hide there from the nurses in labor and delivery so that I could just be with her. And so even having interactions with other parents that were in the NICU at the time, it made me feel a little bit less alone, for
And
sure.
can I just dig a little deeper? Because I think about our listeners who aren't therapists, right? Who, like myself, and going into the NICU. So when you say, and you work with families in your professional career too,
Mhm.
but when you say my therapist mind kicked in, right? My therapist
Mhm.
experience, what did that look like? So if you think about our listeners, like what kicked in for you and what advice do you have for other parents who are going through that?
I think the biggest thing that kicked in for me was my brain saying, there's only so much you can control right now. And what is it? What
Yeah.
can you control? You can control trying to pump and get your milk flowing. You can control sneaking, which sounds terrible, but sneaking into the NICU and being there for those temperature checks and for rounds. You can control your presence. You can't control what's happening with your body right now, and that's really hard.
That is great advice. That is great. And stepping back. I mean, we talk about that a lot with taking it one day at a time, 1 minute at a time, 1 hour at a time, because so many of us like to control, well, what's going to happen at the end of the day? When's the baby coming home? What's this look like? And in the NICU, you can't control those things.
No.
No. I do have to take a minute. So I'm not sure if our listeners hear, but there is a little one in the background. And by I say little one, I mean tell us who's in the background with you, because I'm sure our listeners here maybe hear some meowing.
Yes. So in the background, you're going to hear Jasper. He is a therapy cat. And unfortunately, he has been out of work for 4 years now. Oh, almost 5 years because of COVID. So whenever he hears me talking with a client, or he, hears me talking with anyone really, he needs to be there because he feels like he has to support them.
I
So
love it.
if you hear him, he is trying to come and comfort me. He's trying to come and comfort you.
He just wants to be part of the podcast episode, really.
He does. It's really about him
Absolutely.
and not about me. It's his
Yeah.
journey.
So talk to us. You're in the NICU, you have Evie at home, Vera's in the NICU. How did we talk a lot about families who have older children at home. Your husband was home with Evie a lot of the time. How'd you get through and how'd you balance that?
So a lot of what helped was the age gap between the two of them. Evie was in preschool at the time, and she would be in preschool during the day. So what I used to do once I finally was discharged is I would drive up and visit during the day. And I would spend the day with Vera, or just call in for rounds too, as well, just so that I could feel like I was still there and she wasn't alone. And then when I would come home at night, I would do my best to just focus my energy on Evie, and also answer questions to the best of my ability, because she wanted to know where her sister was and why her sister wasn't home. So I think that helped a lot. But my focus was really on making sure both my girls were okay, because I knew that if I felt like they were doing okay, that I was going to be okay.
And how long did Vera spend in the NICU?
So she was in the NICU, I think it was close to 3 weeks. She came home for the Eagles Super Bowl. So
Okay.
she
That was a
decided
big day.
that's when she had to come home. She had to come home for the big game.
I hope she was dressed in Eagles gear to come home for that.
So she was. We actually have pictures that they took in the NICU of her in Eagles gear, that we keep on our fridge. They're very, very precious little photos. And yeah, it was it was not a great day for the Eagles, we'll be honest, but it was a really great day for our family.
And how is Vera doing today?
She is a little firecracker. She is 21 months, I think 19 adjusted, if I can do math. There's a lot of challenges there. She has a lot of delays, and her overall health has not been fantastic, but her personality is amazing.
Mhm.
We have been very lucky to have an early intervention team that has been with her since she was 6 weeks old.
Makes a huge difference, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we cannot stress enough about the importance of early intervention and getting in early. Hearing you say 6 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
when you know you're being discharged, to call and get on that schedule to make sure the evaluation team can come out and get that early intervention set up is so important.
It is, and it is a big push that I give out there, especially to any mother that wants to breastfeed and is having those difficulties in the NICU with the NICU babies and the things that they do. And early intervention can actually be a really big help with that too.
Huge help. I cannot agree more. So this was a good segue, talking about sharing with other families. I shared a little bit about your professional background. How has your NICU experience impacted the way that you're helping your clients now?
So I think it is very much raised my empathy level even more. I think one of the biggest things that this experience taught me was that grief and loss is not just about death. It really is not. There's so many things that we grieve. We grieve the pregnancy experience that we didn't get to have. We grieve the early days that, we didn't get to spend with our children at home. Mm-hmm. We grieve sometimes our feeding journeys and what we had thought they would look like. So a lot of the work that I have done since the NICU has been around acceptance of those things and accepting that it is okay to grieve in whatever way that you need to, and that you shouldn't feel guilt for sadness and anger and those emotions that come out. And I think because of that, I feel like the families that I've worked with have been able to sort of move to the next parts of their journeys and not feel that guilt for that. And it's shaped my advocacy work too, because I try very hard, even being today on this podcast, to talk about the journey, to talk about how it doesn't matter how prepared you are. It's okay if you're not okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so true. Where can listeners find out more about your practice?
So right now, I am contracting with Everlasting Wellness, which is a small practice, actually a growing practice right now, that is specializing in maternal mental health and lots of other amazing issues as well. You can also just, if you Google my name, I'm going to pop up for you and you're going to learn sort of all about me, as well as my work with the Breastfeeding Resource Center. Those are my main avenues.
Okay, wonderful. Any other advice you want to share with our listeners today?
I think the biggest piece of advice I have is it's okay to not be okay, and it's okay to ask for help, no matter what you're feeling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so important. Well, Jessica, I can't thank you enough for being on the NICU Today podcast. Thank you for sharing your family's journey. Thank you for sharing more about your work and how you're helping others navigate the NICU, perinatal health and care for themselves. So really appreciate all that you're doing. And thanks again for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for tuning in to the NICU Today podcast, brought to you by Today is a Good Day. Learn more at todayisagoodday.org.